a podcast!
That's the story of how I got cholera.
Hello! This podcast is called The Things About Stuff. We are talking about stuff about things. Here today with me is, again, Commander Shepard.
Greetings.
And today, for depending on the time, which podcast you're listening to, it's going to be the first or second time you've heard Bat City.
Shepard.
City. And
Shepard.
and today's topic for Stuff About Things is what defines an RPG. And this topic is actually started by Bat City, so I'll basically let him take it off.
I still don't get to sit in the nice chair.
No one but me sits in the nice chair.
It's your job to take it off.
Yeah. Well, this is gonna get awkward. So, when I was thinking about starting this, that was the first topic that came to mind, because that would be a pretty easy topic to try and cover in some way. So, the really obvious way to try and define role-playing games would simply be by that first, well, by the term itself. It is a role-playing game. It's any game where you play a role. But when you think about it, that really covers far too huge variety of games if you look at it that simply.
Well, statistically speaking, unless you're playing Connect as yourself on the screen, you're assuming another role.
Yeah.
So we have to narrow that down a little bit.
Yeah, and the way that I approached it was still looking at that original concept of playing a role, and then thinking about what would make it so that the game was really focused on that. That a role-playing game isn't just any game where you're playing a role, but where it emphasizes you playing that role.
One of the goals of the game is to take up your role.
Yeah. And in thinking about that, I decided that really the best way to define it then would be by what elements really, really push playing a role within a game. And so there are, of course, some really obvious ones, like a leveling system, which, as opposed to the player getting better at the game, the character that the player is playing as is actually getting better at the game. When it comes to a leveling system, there are a lot of games that have done this in a fairly poor manner. I would call out any game that does any kind of level scaling as having done this in a at least slightly bad manner.
And what do you mean by level scaling exactly?
I'm talking about in well, Oblivion did this like crazy, where everything was based upon, your encounters were based upon your level, or the encounters would get tougher as you were at a higher level, as opposed to the areas you would enter being tougher.
That's also Skyrim.
Yeah, Skyrim does that, but not as bad. They also have some ones that are just at difficulties, like I think giants are, obviously giants. They do not scale to your level 1-ness. They will kill you. And I'm pretty certain a few storyline quests, but then again, I believe all dungeons scale to your level. A lot of random encounters. Wolves don't. That's one.
Just loot scales to your level.
Yeah, loot does, but yeah. Wolves do not scale to your level. They are just there.
Yeah, they kind of
dying like crazy.
It's an annoyance.
Wolf genocide. All the undead things. The Drugars, whatever. Yeah, you're supposed to say that. Draugr. They all scale to level.
The Drugar.
And my problem, though, with level scaling is that it kind of ruins the feeling of power that your character has gotten better.
The idea where your character is getting stronger and making his way in the world.
Yeah, if you never have an encounter where you're just slaughtering these enemies that are normally that you used to have such a tough time with, kind of ruins the concept of leveling up. And one of the many things I take issue with a lot of Western RPGs is they try not to do this because, it ruins the fun. You want to have a consistently increasing challenge over time, but really all it does is it creates a very consistent challenge, as opposed to things getting more difficult over time or things getting easier over time. It's just a flat line because everything scales to you.
Yeah.
Really, I think the hardest fight I had in Dragon Age was the High Dragon.
Oh, yeah.
By far. Even the final boss wasn't as hard as that. And that was because I didn't have the equipment. Otherwise, everything in that game pretty much never really got harder.
Well, I
of course, all the dragons were really hard.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it just never gets more difficult, and it doesn't get more easy. It's just kind of stagnant. Yeah. Only now you have more options for how you can kill things.
Yeah. Well, they don't. Their difficulty curve doesn't really go up, is what you're saying, but you keep getting stronger.
Yeah. I'd actually say in a couple of those it actually gets easier because they didn't instead present very difficult encounters later on. They just presented encounters which they had scaled to you, because with my Arcane Warrior I'd gotten to the point where nothing hurt me anymore and I could kill everything really, really easily and had such an absurd amount of mana that I could, if I had felt like it, constantly throwing fireballs while wielding a greatsword and smashing everything's face in, which kind of made it actually a bit too easy and ruined the feeling of power, and that the feeling you have to match this with also putting in counters that are supposed to be really, really tough. Because otherwise it kind of breaks another form of immersion where this boss you've been having all these problems with over time that has been ransacking the country land should not be a breeze to beat. Fable.
Why?
Yeah.
Why you boss so easy?
So are you breaking this down to a role-playing game involving the world around you shaping to your level? Is that how you?
Yeah, because you were.
Well, I'd say that's that can be a problem. You just have to be able. It's a mark of good game design when you can predict the level that that the player should be. Grinding sucks. Really bad. I don't like having to do that, clearly. I don't think anybody really enjoys that. Some areas games did it well enough. I did enjoy, and I think it was just because it was finally when you got into the open area, but in Final Fantasy XIII I did enjoy doing lots and lots of fights with the bunches of enemies they had in the first areas you got access to that were really open. I think I'm going off on something that's unimportant at this point, though.
Completely.
Yeah, I really am.
So what describes a role-playing game? As your
what I'm saying is what describes the level-up system is working well.
Well, yeah.
Is one where there are people that are always going to be easy to beat. Because you'll feel, so that later on you'll feel much more powerful than them. But you should also counteract this with encounters that should be very difficult. And level scaling can ruin this.
All right. So I think I see what you're getting at.
Yeah. But the cat. Are you calling for more different enemies kind of thing, so that there's a different enemy to be
I'm
fought
calling
that
for
is
level
higher.
scaling. That's about it. And yeah, variety.
Yeah, because because one of the things you were saying before is because in Dragon Age you fight the same enemies over and over. And they don't have any scaling, so you don't want
they
scaling.
do have scaling.
Oh, they do. All right.
Dragon Age scales like crazy.
You made it sound like there is no scaling. So.
There was in Dragon Age.
All right. So if I may address the question of what defines a role-playing game, as I've stated before, a role-playing game is defined by your ability to shape your character. Not necessarily in the sense that you have to be able to visually shape your character or that you have to have varied choices. So long as your character, they allow you to branch out on your character's abilities. For example, if you were playing Modern Warfare, just because you can change your equipment doesn't mean you're changing the character, ergo not a role-playing game, obviously. Yeah. Even if it does have a storyline that you're going to follow with certain choices. It doesn't matter. If you were playing a game like, okay, what's a good example here? Dark Souls is a really bad example because that goes way past what this description is. You know what? Why the hell not? You brought up Oblivion earlier. In Oblivion, you're able to. It's not necessarily the fact that you're able to choose who you talk to in the game that I think defines it as an RPG. It's the fact that you choose what skills you want to build at certain times, and you will progress along different paths based on how you choose to play the character. Ergo, you are assuming a role that you choose to assume. Ergo, it revolves around choice.
The problem is choice.
Yeah, no choice.
Give me a call. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Mr. Shepard? What? Again? Alright. Well, anyway, guys, I just got a call from the Normandy. Citadel's under attack again. I gotta go. I'll see you guys later.
Okay. It's always good to have you aboard, Colonel Shepard.
Indeed. Anyway, I should be back at any time.
Okay.
Well, maybe. Farewell, my friends.
Farewell. Okay.
Well, his points were very good, and I would say that his definition is a very good one. I'll kind of continue with mine, which was going on the different elements that I think help push this whole emphasize playing a role. And I said a level up system because it emphasizes the players, not the players, the character's strength increasing over time rather than the players, and a good leveling and I typify a good leveling system by not having level scaling, having a variety of encounters and a variety of difficulty, but still good game design would have a marker of a solid prediction of what level the character should be at these different areas, because if you mess that up, then the game gets way too easy.
I would say that would need enemies to not respawn. Because otherwise you can just go in and out of an area grinding.
Well, grinding is something people will always do if they're really, really bad at the game. Grinding actually allows for a completely different way of... We're going to do, maybe someday, we will do an entire thing on leveling systems. Maybe.
Future topic!
Future topic. But right now, that is not going to be a good idea. We're going to go... We could wind up talking about this for 20 minutes. So,
first episode, we already have future topics.
Future topic! So going on to the next element, as opposed to turning this into another 45-minute ramble, me rambling and repeating things. Because Bat City loves to repeat things.
He likes to repeat his things.
The next element I'd like to talk about would be choice. Some element of choice. That you get to choose what is going on in the game. That you get... That there are options. And that these options...
Are you talking about options in how to kill things, or options on like how to say that this faction gets to become the new like Imperial Order?
Those are both choices.
Yes. What degree of choices do you need to be able to make in your roleplay game?
Well, I'm being very, very vague intentionally because I'm still trying to keep this definition to include all RPGs. But that you can, there are multiple different choices for how to approach any encounter, or the storyline, different ways to finish the storyline, different ways to approach different fights.
So do you like black and white morality systems?
Stop that. Okay, we're not going to go into that right now.
Just
Curse you, BioWare.
Give me a one. Well, you gave me a 3-word answer, I think.
I think, I do not like black and white morality systems.
Oh,
what I was saying is that there are multiple different ways you can approach an encounter, that you can even go through the storyline, different endings, that are not, you are not told which of those is the wrong way, and all of those different ways within the game's mechanics are made to be just as functional as each other. A game that rewards your good choices by giving you healing powers that suck while your bad choices give you incredibly overpowered life-sucking powers, is not a good example of choice.
Is that Infamous?
Infamous? Sometimes. I don't think Infamous did that too
Infamous
badly.
2.
Infamous 1 did that, I believe.
No.
Really?
I'm pretty sure I saw it in Infamous 2 where you just like basically whenever he got hurt at all, he would just run over to some random civilian, suck their life out, and go back to fighting.
Okay, yeah. If the Infamous games were really disbalanced, I never really played them.
I don't know how disbalanced. They do have some really good first level stuff, while their lower level or their higher level stuff kind of is good, but not as astounding as the first ones. While I think the evil ones get really stronger over time.
However, this involves more than just that. This involves the mage being just as good as the fighter, being just as good as the rogue. Which, once again, I'll call it Dragon Age. The mage is always best. That's the series I know best. So it's a series I know well. So I will often be calling back to that one. And it is a bad thing that the mage is the best. They should all be just as good. But I do like that in the game, it's very difficult to play with just mages. Not that I didn't accomplish that.
By the way, so one of the things it kind of is implied, but we didn't actually talk about, like, Fallout and other shooter type RPGs. So you say with those, how split up should like the guns be in skills? Okay. Because that's something we probably should have said.
Here's a good one here. New Vegas's categories of skills are better than Fallout 3's because big guns does not exist. That was the most horrifically overpowered set of guns, except for energy weapons, which were just as overpowered but easier to reload and less likely to have you kill yourself. The fact that they got rid of big guns allowed, I think it was small weapons or whatever it was called, to become just as good of a weapon set as energy weapons was. Although I'd still say energy weapons is probably a little bit overpowered.
One of the things they tried to do in Fallout 3, I believe, I'm not the development team here, but I think they tried doing it in availability.
Yeah.
Is the small weapons were their own thing because they were really available. Like the reason why you take them is because all of the ammo for everything is really available. The big guns is overpowered but really expensive and really hard to get. And then energy weapons are kind of in the middle there, but still really rather overpowered. So
yeah. I'd agree with that, but availability really stopped making sense later on once you get absurd amounts of money. And therefore, the ultimate build is the build that focuses on the long term. And it was a game that kind of displeased me in that sense, but it's not a big deal. I still loved it. It was a very fun game.
Of course, at the end, you have all the money.
Yeah. Choice, that whole element. There are multiple different ways to approach a situation, and all of them are left with multiple different ways to approach a situation that all work. They're all just as good as each other. A role-playing game has to have some degree of this, in that it allows you to play a character that isn't necessarily just forcing you to achieve this skill challenge or be this good at this puzzle, but rather your character's high intelligence allows them to get through the hacking puzzle more easily, I guess. Or your character's high strength allows them to punch through the door. Ultimate example of this working would be the Deus Ex games. They have so much of this, it's crazy.
Yeah, I have to say that.
The only problem with Human Revolution is, of course, the boss fights.
Yeah. I got through them pretty
As far as
okay,
that.
but
Well, yeah, you did because you were a monster.
I was.
You were a monster.
I destroyed everyone in that police station.
Yep.
And
killed
then all of the
everybody.
bosses, and then sold all my ammo, and then really struggled during the second to last boss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I'd have to say because of how easy it was for me to play the bosses, it was probably a lot funner. Like it was more fun for me to play the game. So it was like one of my maybe my top RPG of the year.
yeah. And it should be noted that, subjectively speaking, you will like an RPG better, or you will more fit your definition of an RPG if your choices are emphasized.
Probably.
I like Dragon Age better because I would have played the mage anyway. The beard, my bearded nemesis, he adores Dragon Age because he will always play mages in whatever game he plays. Always an elven mage named Zyath. But
now
and
we're
because his choices are emphasized, his choices are said to be good, they more fit his definition of an RPG. However, in order to be like a mass appeal RPG or to fit the most people's definition of an RPG, all of their choices have to be emphasized. All of their choices have to work. The more balanced the different choices are, the better.
Yeah. Well, balanced, but the ability to do it differently makes it good.
Yes.
Because that gives them their own way to do it.
The next element I'd say is really big one would be like world building. That there is a world that is huge and you can influence it and change it. All of the Bethesda ones do this very, very well.
What about BioWare?
BioWare does this not quite as well, but still does it. Really, only very, very poor RPGs end up not having this element in the slightest. Going to JRPGs.
I was about to say,
actually, most
BioWare?
JRPGs are fine with this one. They're better with this one, having a large explorable world in comparison to Choice. Choice is something they may not do as well. Build-wise, you can often have RPGs that'll be very good with Choice.
Yeah, I guess.
But they may not be quite as good with story allowing you to choose.
Yeah, they're linear. They're usually linear.
And going back to the subjectivity of Choice, my definition of what a role-playing game is, and the game that I feel I am the most immersed into that role, will always be Kingdom Hearts 2. Because the choices he makes, the things he does, I have so much fun with, and I enjoy that game so much. I agree with what is done in it so much that is what I would do. My choices are emphasized. The choices I would make are the ones that the game is promoting, so I feel the choice in that is good, even though I know it's very poor. I can tell from a more objective standpoint that story-wise, there's not that many different things. There's one ending to that game. Well, no, there's multiple endings if you have OCD, but there's multiple OCD endings.
Well,
so
I can't comment on Kingdom Hearts 2, Josh, so you kind of stepped into a place.
I know. You can't
step.
comment on most JRPGs, though.
Yeah.
And that's my favorite JRPG.
Well, technically, I can only comment
and you're supposed to call me Bat City.
Bat City! I'm sorry. It's just, I'm kind of just sitting here.
But going back to world building. Because that's where we're at. Like I said.
It seems like a far step now. Like, they just went over. Train has been derailed.
Derailed!
JRPGs
still do that one mostly okay. As far as having a big world that you can interact with that's enjoyable. That's something they achieve.
It's something all games should hopefully achieve a little bit.
Yeah. That's full of all kinds of different... That's well built, has a lot of depth to it. Bethesda games have mastered this. Enjoyable, full of good characters, maybe not as much so, but they have mastered that part about depth and size and interactivity. There is so much of that in their worlds that world building is an element that if you want to see, play Oblivion, play.
By the way,
Fallout
something
3.
about JRPGs. I had a question. So, well, with Kingdom Hearts 2, I was gonna say. So, what is the role of Sora? What role can you pick with Sora?
All right, he doesn't talk enough, so I feel that it. The mostly silent protagonist, I guess.
This could be another topic for the future, Bad City.
Like I said, the subjectivity of all of this, for me, I felt like that was a very fun game, and not just because the gameplay was fun, but because I felt immersed into it.
Well, no, yeah, I know, but what I'm saying is, does Sora actually get to pick a role?
Oh, no.
Okay.
There's very little choice as far as that. It's just the choices that the character makes are choices I would make, so I felt the choices were good.
All right, and there's a level up system in it?
Yeah, there is a level up system in it. So yeah, you can have different builds.
Is there different builds?
Yeah, there's definitely that.
Okay.
And you can choose whether to give all of your ability points crystals to yourself or to your allies. Always give them to yourself. Donald and Mickey can go die in a hole.
Not Mickey. Not Mickey.
Oh yeah. Donald and Goofy. A moron.
Because Mickey, destroys people.
Mickey is amazing. Let's get back on to world building, Alex.
Disney World. Greatest place.
Precisely why I was saying JRPGs still do this well.
Disney World was amazing.
However, I think this is part of where Final Fantasy XIII ended up dropping the ball, was that its world building was poor and that there was no interactivity. You never really found out what was going on. It was all hidden in these huge logs that... Why would I ever read those?
That's like...
This is stupid.
This is well over a novel.
Yeah, it was... And that is a way not to do world building. To have it in books.
Skyrim.
Yeah, Skyrim...
I think Skyrim does...
Skyrim achieves it well enough in that the characters have all this stuff that they can talk to you about, and the books are short enough, and you just will grab them, read a little bit, and you get some stuff. The quests are varied enough and give you all kinds of information on their own. Talking to people.
There's enough life in the rest of the world to get it from that. So that
so
would be one of the problems.
It allows you to... It allows everyone to get a fulfilled experience of this is a really fleshed out world. Everyone can. Final Fantasy XIII forced you, if you wanted to have this feel like a really fleshed out world, to read all of these logs. That was bad. That was bad world building.
You had to read 2 or 3 novels in order to get the story. It's terrible.
So once again, it comes back to choice, and choice is a good thing in all role-playing games.
I have the choice to not read.
Yes. I'm pretty certain I had some other elements in here. But I've started forgetting what they were. Characters.
Yeah.
Characters that are fleshed out. Now, this is part of world building, but is... Now, here is where I will start... world building is that part where I get to say all these nice things about Bethesda. Characters is where I get to see all these terrible, terrible things about Bethesda.
I don't know. Still, as going back to the old podcast, the podcast of 3 games where we did the Skyrim, where they had a good enough amount of character building on the companions, having their quests, having them do little things that, just little things that kind of gave me that these are people and not mules. I hate those. I hate what they did in Skyrim there with the mules.
Yeah. You mean like
Yes.
Thane or whatever her name
Yeah,
is?
whatever
Yeah.
her name is from Skyrim. Pretty much, she
That-
had
She's just like
a mule. She's a mule that can hold a sword.
and that is a sign of bad.
It's just
When your easiest person to have be your party member is
one step above a mule. One step above a mule because they can hold a sword.
yeah. Mules can't hold swords, they're just really good at kicking. She can't kick, but and yeah. Bethesda does this poorly. Very poorly.
Good pull.
When I'm comparing
Their characters to mules.
that's bad. That's very bad.
That's a bad Bethesda.
Bioware does this very well.
Dragon Age again.
But has this thing for putting in characters I feel like I want that I really want to kill, because they're horrible people.
I would say that's a good thing though, because that's characterizing
I know.
them a lot.
I know, but they have to be my companions, and I feel terrible.
Because they never get used.
Yep.
They never come out of their
Actually, going back to
stable.
choice for a little bit, my big problem that I'll always have with Dragon Age games is that blood mages. Is that blood mages? As long as those things continue to exist, I will be very angry. As long as they exist as a specialization. And one of the few ones that you have, that one, the healing one. I never make a healing mage. That's boring. And
Shut up.
usually
City.
not. The other ones usually aren't that great. Like with Origins, it was the Arcane Warrior was really good, and Shapeshifter sucked.
Yeah, shapeshifter.
Shapeshifter could be really good if you really built something specifically around shapeshifting. From what I've seen, apparently it's not absolutely terrible, but it's absolutely terrible. That in order to have a shapeshifter build, you have to build a shapeshifter build. Nothing else.
Nothing but shapes.
So, and the fact that Blood Mage, which is this one that is based around this very, very, you have to be a bad person to have this specialization, that always displeased me. Because it limited, and I know that that's in a way also kind of a good thing. Because it gives you this option where, well, you will never be this because it's bad. And you have to question yourself. It really makes you question yourself, and that's a bit of artistic usefulness, I guess.
That is a good.
But at the same time, they limit your options a lot.
Yeah.
I'll never play that game as a mage without it being an Arcane Warrior for a reason. And I'll end up having to choose Spirit Healer, even though I don't like it. And that is displeasing. If you only got one specialization, I wouldn't be that irritated. But since they make you choose multiple specializations, I'm a little bit irritated. Because my options are limited more than people who are like, hey, I'm willing to be a bad guy. And if you think you can be a good blood mage, I hate you.
Why?
Because I hate blood mages in that game. So bad, so bad, so bad, so bad.
Yeah, because in the Bethesda game they or not Bethesda, Bioware.
They make everything bad. Blood mages make everything bad.
Blood mages are usually your enemy, right? Yeah.
They're my enemies specifically, but
well, no. I mean, in the game, like when you're going through your story quest, they're
usually bad guys, and
so
it's clearly the evil alignment specialization.
But you can still be good, and
it's a limiter on choice that is kind of. It wouldn't be as big of a problem if they had just expanded on each specialization to make them a little bit bigger. I felt like my choices were being downplayed because I was forced into this healing and Arcane Warrior role.
Well, I don't get why
because I wasn't willing to suck out the blood of my enemies. Well, that's not what blood mages do.
They suck out your own
I wasn't
blood.
willing to make contracts with demons.
Pretty much.
So my choices should be limited, and that is once again. I don't know if that's a completely bad example of choice because it does make you think, but it's something that's just an irritant to me, and that's something about.
But Josh,
something to think about, I guess.
It's something.
Food for thought.
But the same time, your choices aren't technically super limited, I guess, because, well, they are limited by one choice. But
Yeah.
really, it isn't. I wouldn't even take that power for the fact that it makes your health so low.
Hey,
It's good. Well, it
it
is.
winds
good.
up working, but we're getting off task here. Continually going into my pet peeves about Dragon Age. So back to characterization. Dragon Age does this fairly well, except for the party members I feel like killing because they're stupidly evil. But that's beside the point. Dragon Age Origins, I would say, did this a little bit better than Dragon Age 2, but that's just for me, subjectively. I felt that the characters in Dragon Age Origins were better, but then some of the choices made in Dragon Age 2, I'd say, were better choices. I did like the fact that all of your companions had very original, unique models, it felt like. Unique clothing. And that was neat. I thought that was pretty cool. It made them more fleshed out, made them pretty cool. They all had their unique specializations. That was cool. I liked that Varric was the only person who used a crossbow. That was pretty cool. And a lot of the choices they did there emphasized characterization more and were good choices. However, they then mixed it with having characters I personally didn't like. I did not like what they did to Anders. And I did not like having to have a blood mage in my party. That annoyed me. Because I couldn't do my whole 3 mages and a warrior build that... No, 3 mages and an archer party that I normally do. But... not a warrior. An archer.
But
because that mage was...
But that's just a pet
and that's me. That's, like I said, that's subjectivity there. And I would say that, objectively, though, some of the choices they made did emphasize characterization, and it was really a lot of very good choices they made there. They really made you do all of these quests with your allies if you wanted to do well in the storyline. You had to flesh these characters out. You had to choose whether they were your friends or your enemies, which was an awesome choice. All of these things they did that emphasized characterization were really, really good. But even though they did all of that, I still feel like the characters in Dragon Age Origins were better, simply because I felt they were not annoying.
And how did you feel they're annoying? Like, just keep going on about that.
I just didn't like them that much. I mean, that's one of those things. You're going to run into people you don't like in real life. I'm just saying I didn't like the characters, not because I felt they were poor characters.
Oh, okay.
But because I thought that they were... I didn't like them. I liked Varric. He was awesome. That's an example of a great character right there. I thought he was amazing.
Because you were kind of...
And I thought all the characters were really fleshed out. Had all kinds of great ideas to them. Some of them were kind of cliche, maybe. Fenris, kind of cliche. Seemed like just an angry. Okay, he seemed like like the evil version of Dretz, which is something people do. And as a fantasy fan, I know those things are out there a lot. But
I also haven't played Dragon Age 2. So
yeah, so
I've only seen some of it.
Yeah. And I felt, overall, objectively speaking, though, a lot of the choices they made were very good. And did emphasize characterization.
Yeah.
But characterization is like...
And they also...
good characters. Characters with all kinds of fleshed out storyline to them, with lots of personality that aren't just cliches, that have goods and bads and goals and dreams. They're like people. Now...
not mules.
Now, this is also another place where you can show a lot of sympathy to JRPGs, because they will have very varied casts. Now, they may not complete. Now, they will adhere to some cliches you're not used to, A more Western audience one maybe, I guess. But they do a lot more characterization than, say, a Bethesda game. So, and it does depend on which one you're talking about. They're not mules, basically. They have a whole lot of not mules.
Which is a good.
That's a good thing. It's a very good thing for JRPGs. But some of them will. Their problem is they can sometimes adhere too strongly to cliche. With some of them, I wouldn't say that about all of them. I don't want to make really big sweeping generalizations about that when it comes to something that horrifically subjective as cliches. But we've just passed up 40 minutes, so. And I ran out of things at this point.
Things about stuff. I was gonna say so. It was about the Dragon Age 2 thing, where they. One of the things they also had you do. They didn't make you do it, but they kind of showed you that finding out about the characters that are, you're making friends with. You need to find out about them. To see where they
it's
stand.
like a dating simulator.
Only not that.
Only not as creepy. Of course, that's what I'll immediately draw the comparison to. I'm a horrible person.
And that is a city for you. And then with, like you're saying with the JRPGs, like something you could say to some people is, would you rather have a mule, or would you rather have a cliche-ridden character for the JRPG?
And honestly, I'd rather have a cliche-ridden character because at least I can talk to them.
Yeah,
or at least they'll say things, and sure, sometimes it'll make me want to rip my face off, but he has
a dream. He has a dream.
They're not a mule. Mules are bad. Mules are the enemies of good RPGs. Because that's not bad characterization. That's a lack of it altogether.
That's a complete laziness.
That's a lack of what I consider to be one of the defining elements of RPGs. So don't not have it. Mules are the enemy of RPGs.
Mules, the enemy.
Now, Alex will probably eventually make a poster of just mules.
Oh yes, I've been thinking about this the entire thing.
Yeah. But yeah, bad characterization, I would say, is better than a lack thereof.
Yeah.
Because it's not really an RPG if there's absolutely zero characterization.
Also with a bad attempt at a character, even if it's bad for your game and you did it kind of poorly and you didn't notice it until late, it's still a good learning experience for everyone else to see that this is not how you do characterization well.
And even then,
other than hating on mules.
Yeah. Because of how subjective that is, having bad characterization is better than having none, because somebody may still really like that character.
Yeah.
I mean, there are some people out there who really like what they did with Anders, and they can do that. I hate it.
What did Andrews do?
Yes. It would be plot. Spoilers.
Oh, okay, it would definitely be spoilers, so I'll have to learn that later.
But went from being my funny best friend to being such a downer. Such a downer.
Oh, is there anything else? Is there anything I could think of?
I can think of nothing else. And we're getting really long here, so
yeah,
that time.
Okay, so I hope you enjoyed these things about stuff and this stuff about things. My friend Bat City and I will talk to you some other time.